Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining today's webcast. Hopefully you'll be seeing the title screen on your computer screen now, IT Management Made Easy and Efficient using Altiris Client Management Suite. I hope for some of you that brings a little chuckle because IT management is neither always easy nor always efficient, but using some processes and tools and things like that, we hope to get, at least from where we are, and gain a little bit more efficiency, make things a little bit easier, and make our jobs a little easier along the way. My name is Dixon. I'm the Vice President for Public Sector Operations at ITS Partners, which means I handle a lot of the state and local, as well as federal government business that we do here at ITS. We also have a commercial side of our organization. So I'll be putting out some contact information at the end of the webcast. Feel free to contact me or call our main number if you need any assistance with either with the information that you see on the webcast today or on any other Symantec products, Altiris products, or anything like that. So first of all, I want to sort of go over who ITS is and why we're presenting this material. I want to talk about how we can make IT management easy and efficient. I want to talk about strengthening and maturing the management model. And if we have some time at the end of the webcast here, I want to go into a little bit of a demo as far as a product walkthrough here. This is essentially who ITS is. We're an engineer-centric organization, which means our engineers, and our engineers' knowledge is our backbone. That's our product, is our engineers and what they know. We look to work with customers to improve practices, like business processes and things like that, things that drive your IT business. Those are business benefits that we deliver as well, and when we're all done, we hope to have increased employee knowledge both on our side and on yours. A couple of other notes, and I won't read these. I'll just leave these up here for a minute. As far as who ITS is, where we are, what we do. I do want to call attention, though, to the bottom bullet. We have experience, and this is not being boastful or trying to blow our own horn, but we send up to 20 consultants, sometimes more, out each week to different organizations. Each one of those 20 consultants goes out and they come back and they go out the next week. And sometimes we have some bench time and things like that, and that's where the consultants share the things, obviously not proprietary information, but share some of the things that they've learned. So when one of our consultants comes on site at your organization, not only do they have the wealth of knowledge from the customers that they've worked with and the different ways that they've set up products and managed processes and things like that, but they also have the wealth of knowledge from the 19 or 20 or 21 or however many consultants we have active at any given time. They have their knowledge as well. So you essentially are receiving one body with a lot of support, a lot of knowledge, things like that when they're on site working at your organization. These are all of the things that go into IT management. When we look at managing the IT infrastructure, IT processes, policies, and things like that, and our assets and our equipment, you can take a look at this. It's really the IT life cycle, and it covers just about everything there is to managing assets and IT within an organization. If we look at a 3-year refresh cycle, the purchase price, let's say it's $1,000 for a computer, accounts for 1/4 of the total cost of an asset. This chart, which is the life cycle of the 3 years of the asset, accounts for 3/4 of the total cost of an asset. So if your purchase price is $1,000, this chart really makes up another $3,000. So you end up with a total asset cost at the end of 3 years of $4,000. What we try to do through using processes, tools, and things like that is drive this cost down so that the the management cost of the asset is lower than 3/4. The purchase price, hopefully we can decrease that, if we get a sale or something, but the management cost is the number that we can affect. I want to talk for a minute. Actually, I'll wait for a minute for my next poll. I want to look at some of the IT management functions, sort of breaking that chart down into bullets. We're looking at things like asset lifecycle. These are all functions of IT management. We're looking at software license management, process management, end user support, service level agreements, contracts and warranties, new technology, data security, education. That's both ourselves and our people when we get new technology and things like that out. We have compliance that we have to keep track of. We've got record keeping, and we've got reporting. Somebody wants to see what we're doing on a daily basis. Let's talk about business processes for just a minute. I've got a poll here that has a couple of questions about business processes. These are obviously the written or formal or informal rules that drive how we do business. Sometimes we have them all written down and published. Sometimes they are verbal processes. Sometimes only one person in the company knows what they are. One way we can gain efficiency, one of the things we talked about as far as gaining efficiencies with processes and things like that, and consolidation, is if we can consolidate our data. And I've got a question here in just a second that I'll throw up. If we can consolidate our data, we can make better use of it sometimes. And I've got an example here about a software license. Well, a software license contains purchase information, which the procurement is going to want to know. It's also going to go into the total cost of our asset. A license to use. Every machine or every concurrent machine that's on has to have a license, which means those licenses have to be recorded somewhere. We've got authority to install or have installed. How do we deliver software? How do we distribute it? How do we know that we have the authority to install it on this computer or that computer or this location? Goes right back up to the bullet above. How do we know that we have licenses left to install the software? And who has authority to request that the software be installed? Most software comes with a maintenance contract. If we specifically look at Microsoft software, a product like the Office Suite has software maintenance that we pay for. So all of these things come into play. We have to know how many licenses so that we'll know how many maintenance or how much maintenance we're going to pay for. And when we get involved, should we get audited or should we have to supply compliance reports and things like that, we have to show proof of ownership. So all of these things come into play with a software license. Now, a lot of times we'll put software licenses, we'll record them on an Excel spreadsheet, or we'll put them in, we'll print them out and put them in a file cabinet. But wouldn't it be great if we had a tool that not only would show us all of the licenses that we've purchased, but when we purchased them, what computers those licenses are installed on, when how much the maintenance costs, when the maintenance expires, who the person we bought the maintenance from is, and we're able to print out a report at the end of the year or at some point during the year showing how many licenses we own, where they're installed, what are installed. Hopefully we don't have an overage, but be able to show all of that information from one tool or one source. Speaking of tools, let me just throw this poll out. This goes into how many tools are you currently using to manage your IT infrastructure. The majority of the people said it was more than one tool that they're currently using, and that's fine because a lot of people have specific tools they like for specific jobs. But I will say that if we're able to consolidate data, or if we're even able to use multiple tools that will talk to each other, share data, we enable a single entry data point, and we allow data to be reused. For example, if we enter license data one time in one tool, then we can reuse that data, that license data, in our other tools or to manage our other solutions. So the procurement person enters the purchase date and the software cost one time and the number of licenses they purchase, and the people distributing software can use that number to manage how many computers they distribute software to so they don't go over. It eliminates redundancy because we don't have to enter the same information more than once. And obviously that's duplicate entries, and it also helps us eliminate errors in entries where, in one entry we might have 050, and another entry we might have 050. Those two are going to come up as two separate records, but it's the same entry. It also decreases the time required to train our people. The fewer tools we have, obviously the fewer training sessions and the fewer dollars we have to spend on training. So I want to jump into processes. I know I already threw up the poll question on processes here. But this is another area where we can gain efficiency. We can look at our processes and say, do our processes that we have, do they make sense? Can they be easily understood? Do we have a lot of processes that don't make sense? That we wrote them down because of a virus that went out and we caused everybody to adhere to them, but they don't make sense. They're not easily understood. And the worst part about it is, if we write a process, we need to be able to enforce it. So if we have something that says everybody will sign into this particular program by 10 a.m. on Monday morning, and we're down to about 10% of our employees that follow the process, so we're not enforcing it, and people don't know why we're doing it, what's the point in having it? And can we measure adherence, and can we measure enforcement? And the one bullet that's not up here is we have to continue to review those processes and see if they really do make sense. So one poll on the processes that we have here is, when we talked a little bit about consolidating data with tools and things like that, and we talk about processes. So the question that I have now is one that comes up a lot of times. Do people develop processes and then buy a tool to help them enforce them? Or do they buy a tool, or is the tool forced down their throat and they have to develop the processes that fit within the parameters of the tool? And I think everyone would agree that in a perfect world, if we had some processes that we liked that drove our business, that were easily understood, they made sense, and they were easy to enforce, the best way to handle that would then be to go find a tool that helped us enforce our processes instead of the other way around. But that's not to say it doesn't happen. Let's talk about automation for a minute. We talked about data consolidation. We talked about our processes. Now let's talk about automation. When we have data consolidation and we talk about sharing data among one or two or three or however many tools, and the ability to do that, we talk about these tools that enforce our processes. Automation is another area where we can gain efficiency. Obviously, automation, we use it to develop repeatable steps. You probably have a number. There isn't a right or wrong number, but you probably have a number that says, I only want to do this X number of times a day, a week, a month, or whatever it is. And let's say your number is 5, and you re-image computers. You receive computers from Dell or HP or Lenovo, whoever they might be, and your job is to put the image on these computers. You probably would be okay manually imaging, let's say 5 computers a month. If it was more than that, you would want an automated process because it would just take too much time. A lot of times you can start at one end and work your way across, let's say 5 computers, start at the first one and work your way to the 5th one, and maybe devote 1 or 2 days a month to doing that if you had to do it manually. But if it was any more than that, it behooves you to have an automated process, something that's going to lay that image on the computer. It's going to do some post-image configuration. It's going to install some software based on who might be receiving that computer and what their job is, and it's going to let you know when it's done. and help you migrate data off of the employee's existing computer onto the new computer, and then you're able to distribute that computer to the new employee with a minimal amount of manual work done to the computer. So that's really what our automation does. I mean, it does save us time, but it also ensures procedures are done the same way every time. The computer, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 1,000 computers that are all imaged the same way are a lot easier to support and maintain by the help desk than 10, 15, 100, 1,000 different ways that a computer might be built and configured. And it also helps us to eliminate redundant processes. We don't have to do the same thing over and over again if we're doing it manually, even down to taking a CD in and out of a drive. So the last thing we want to look at as far as our efficiency pieces is some of the things that we need to do on a regular basis. We need to exercise our processes. The question about, do they make sense? Are they easily understood? Those are things we need to go back and look at. Maybe we need to poll some of our users and say, do you understand what this means? Do you understand why we do it? Evaluate your tools continually. It doesn't really matter whether you had a company like ITS come in and install a great suite of tools, or whether it was another company or another product or something like that. We have to continually evaluate our stuff to make sure it fits our needs. Educating administrators and end users, because, like I said, the processes and the tools and things like that, they don't really do any good if people don't know how to use them. And the last thing we want is a bunch of end users that feel like, Big Brother is watching, and, why should we do this? Why should we follow these rules and things like that? The more educated, surprisingly, the more educated our end users are, the more likely that they are to really help us out and do the, not try to circumvent the processes and the tools, sort of leave things alone, let it run the way they're supposed to. And we have to revise things. We can't be afraid to say, you know what, this worked last year, but it doesn't work now. It's all about growth, and it's all about being able to adjust and adapt. These are basically three areas, sort of a recap of some of the things that we've talked about gaining efficiencies. I mean, obviously, some of the things I've talked about help us reduce the total cost of owning client systems. We looked at the one force, three force. We're able to reduce the cost of some of these items here, like deploying the image, securing, troubleshooting, managing our computers. We can cut down on that three-force cost. Gaining control of IT, gaining visibility into all our systems. Knowing where they are, who has them. Are they still active? Sometimes we've got machines out there we don't even know that they're. We didn't even know they were still active. We thought that thing had been. Salvaged or disposed of a long time ago. But yeah, there it is, and it's still using up licenses. It's still using up bandwidth, and we're still supporting it. And aligning processes, people, and technology, bringing IT and business together. IT is not just some support organization that belongs in the basement. It's a business unit, just like finance is, just like accounting, just like sales. And we need to treat it like one, because we end up, we've got, if you take accounting for a minute, accounting handles your paycheck. They interface with all of the employees, yet they're one business unit. Well, IT handles your computers and your data, and they interface with all employees. So in the scheme of things, they're not, not necessarily just a whipping dog. They're a business unit just like any other. So let's look at some of the real ways that we can gain efficiency using a product like Altiris Client Management Suite. We've got four items listed here. We've got remote assistance, intelligent software and patch management. We've got imaging and deployment, and discovery and inventory. We're sort of going to look at these backwards from bottom to top. But the thing I wanted to show you is from a recent study with efficiency results, doing things manually versus doing things, with a product like Altiris. We've got an 86% time savings and an 81% cost savings. And these are real figures, because if you just go by the imaging example I used earlier, how long does it take you to put a CD or a DVD in the drive and install an operating system, and then install all the applications that need to go on it, and then make sure the machine is patched and copy the end user's data from the existing machine to the new machine? Even if you have some automation within there, you always run into the issue where one process finishes and the next one begins. And if the automation doesn't look at one of the processes finishing and the next one beginning, then the machine could sit for hours, sometimes even days. One process is finished and the next one hasn't begun, because it takes a manual kickoff. It's still the process itself still runs automated, but it has to be kicked off manually. So things like that do gain efficiency, and we can, obviously these figures are manual, nothing versus an automated process, and they're sort of high, and results may vary for having something in place now versus gaining efficiency using it better or more or something, but the numbers and the savings are still there. So discovery and inventory. Hopefully nobody has a room that looks like this picture. I've seen some of these. But what we have with discovery and inventory is we have a database that's populated with data for discoverable assets. We've got assistance with software license management. If we're looking at these things, we can help forecast growth requirements. And we've got two real-world results here, one from GM Brazil and one from Reed Smith. The inventory time at Reed Smith reducing from 1 month to minutes. I'm sure people can relate to this, where someone's asked you, how many of our machines have Office on them? Because we need to buy, a new version of Office. How many machines do we have out there that have Office? And you go and you say, well, it's in the image, so it's all of them. The next question is, how many of them need Publisher? How many of them need Visio? And things like that. And you end up pulling your hair out trying to find all this information. The worst part about all this information is it's constantly changing. So as soon as you have one answer, it could be different the next day. So having a database or repository of this information that you can run reports against at any time helps reduce your inventory time. Now we look at imaging and deployment. We've got deployment capabilities, we've got image-based or scripted operating system installs, and we've got the ability to update and re-provision these images as need be. We've got hands-free, zero touch. We can migrate data from one computer to another. We can reduce risks associated with changing a desktop, both from us having to support multiple configurations on out in our organization. We can also ensure that the image that's out there, if we know what the image is, that it's the most current or it's not the most current, and we know what the makeup of that image is. And we've got a couple of results here. The top one there, from deployment times from 4 to 8 hours to 1 hour or less, those are real numbers. We can decrease the time it takes to put an image on a machine, and if you can reduce it from 1 day to 1 hour, you're doing a pretty good job there. Software and patch management. Obviously, patch management is important to everybody because we have to make sure that the machines are compliant. We have to make sure that the data is safe. We also need to have a method of automating how we distribute software. Unless we're a company of one, which according to the poll nobody is, then we've got to have ways to get our software out to our end users. If we've got an update to software, we've got a new piece of software that has to be distributed, there has to be a method to do that. The same thing with patches. Even if we had, speaking for Windows, if we had our Windows update turned on, there's no guarantee that the Windows update right out of the box is going to work with the software that's installed on our computers. So we've got to do some sort of checking. We've got to do some sort of prepping and testing of the patches when they come out. The other thing is we're going to need to know, we're going to need to have a way to verify that our systems are compliant. Imagine, if you will, you feel like you've got compliant systems on your network, you've got a pretty secure network, you've got a good firewall, you've got everything set up to keep the bad stuff out. But you have no way to tell how well patched your end users' computers are. So they bring their computer in, they plug it into your network, they open up their email, and they start blasting viruses all over the company. So it doesn't really matter, how strong the gate was, because somebody walked in the gate and plugged in and, infected everybody with, inside the castle. With the ability to run reports and things like that on patch management, vulnerabilities, and compliance, we're able to see down to the machine, down to the update and the patch, who's not compliant and who is. And we can even take steps to prohibit that computer from logging into the network until it is compliant. A little more on intelligent software management. We're able, I was talking to a customer the other day that said that they needed to have policy-based software delivery. What we're able to do is detect and analyze, this computer has software A, B, and C, and it needs D and E. Well, I don't want to sit there and have to look and say, what machines don't have this? Go run a report, find out, and then set up a group of machines that I need to send this to, and then I need to send it to them, and then I need to monitor it, and I need to run reports and make sure they got it. What I can do is, with my detection and analysis, I can set up a rule that says machines that don't have this software. Any new machine that comes on my network, if it doesn't have the software, it's automatically going to be tagged to get it. Once the machine gets the software, it's going to no longer be a member of that filter group. If someone should come along and uninstall the software or remove a piece of the software that's required for the software to be successful, it's going to be tagged and identified. It's going to be put back either in the original group to have the software reinstalled, or it's going to be put in a maintenance group to have the software repaired. So we're more able, we set up one policy at the beginning to make sure that this software gets installed on all our computers, or all our Windows 7 computers, or all of our computers in Los Angeles, or all of our computers in Canada, whatever it might be. We set it up one time, and as long as the policy is active, all of the computers in our organization will read that policy and take the appropriate steps. We've got application virtualization. One of the great things about this is that if you remember back to, and I'm going back here to Office 95, when Office 97 came out, there was a huge push to not install Office 97 because everyone had gone in and written Access databases in Office 95. So anybody that was running Access 95 couldn't upgrade to Office 97 because they couldn't install Access 97. What we can do with virtualizing applications is we run an install and we capture that install and we see all of the requisites to the application, all the required files, all the dependencies, and we build those into a package. We build them into a virtual layer, and we can deploy this virtual layer to a machine. And so going back to the 95 versus 97 with Access, a computer could have um, Access 95 in a virtual layer, and it could move on to Office 97. Both products, or both applications, run independently of each other, and they don't interfere. We've also got reports that we can run to ensure that the layers are active. We could install a product if we have a database cutover on Monday morning. We can install the new login to that database weeks ahead of time, and we could, once Monday morning comes along, we could activate that virtual layer. And now the new layer is active, the old layer is inactive, and go on business as usual without the end user really knowing any difference between the two. We've also got compliance that we can, if we've got products that we don't want installed in our environment, we can right-click to blacklist them. We can ensure that distributed applications remain installed. Like I was saying before, if we have a portion of an application that's no longer working, then we can list that application, we can list that computer to be repaired, to have the software reinstalled, so that the application continues to function. This is just a screenshot of the software delivery wizard. We can see here that there's a software resource. In this case, it's Adobe Reader 8. And we can also see that the resource has been superseded by Adobe Reader 9. So if we wanted to have the most current one, we could choose that because we have a superseded application. But if we wanted to deploy Adobe Reader 8, then we can enter command line options if we want to. We can select destination, which would include the computers or the policies that we want to send the software out under. We schedule when we want the delivery to go, and we look at dependencies and updates. If the software needs another piece of software installed before it installs, we can list those. If there's any updates out there, maybe a critical update to the application that we want to have installed right after the application installs, we can do that too. And you'll notice right here in the middle, there's a box that says install this policy software into a virtual software layer. If we want to make this, let's say we wanted to keep Adobe Reader 8 installed because we still need it for a particular business process, but we're going to install it. We want to install Adobe Reader 9 to stay, abreast of what the applications are being used. Then we can install Adobe Reader 8 into a virtual software layer, deploy it, and then deploy Adobe Reader 9. And we can have both applications existing simultaneously on the machine. The final piece that I wanted to look at is remote assistance. Right now we're using PC Anywhere to do this. A lot of times the biggest help desk, the biggest desk side support cost is actually going out to an end user's computer, wherever that computer might be, and doing troubleshooting. That it would be a lot easier if we had the ability to remote control into the system and do the troubleshooting, without the engineer or the tech ever leaving his desk. So what that gives us helps us, like I said, we can also troubleshoot and remediate a system without disrupting the end user. If that was our end game, we could do that. A lot of times we'll want the end user to know that we're logging in, and that's fine too, because we may want them to watch what we're doing, so that we, going back to the end user education, we let them know if it's something straightforward or simple. We let them know what we're doing, so that maybe they can fix it, or they can be more aware of what's happening in the future. We reduce help desk costs because we don't have to send somebody out to fix the problem. We can fix it remotely. And we also give the help desk workers remote functions. A couple of the examples here, if you've got an organization that maybe has one building, you can understand that maybe running down the hall of somebody's office isn't that big a deal. But if you've got a global organization where you might have to either send a computer from Singapore back to Atlanta to get fixed, or you have to potentially maybe put somebody on the road to go out to a remote location, or even put somebody in the air to do that. Being able to remote control and fix the computer remotely is a huge savings. This is the IT Management Suite, and the group over here in green is really what we're talking about today: the deployment and migration, inventory, software delivery, software virtualization, remote control. There are other pieces that I have listed here, which we can see the server management, obviously doing a lot of the same things as client to servers, but also doing hardware and system monitoring. And then we get asset management as well, where we're looking at license management, we're looking at IMAC processes, really getting into using the CMDB and looking at our service catalog. Then we've got some add-on solutions listed down at the bottom, and some semantic integration components that we can snap in for a no-cost solution into the management console, like integrating with semantic endpoint protection, backup exec system recovery, and data loss prevention. So this is the semantic management console. I was looking at some reports earlier. Actually, I'll tell you what, since these, and I'll go ahead and give the obligatory comment about running a server class platform on a laptop. So that's my apology for any kind of latency and speed for today. What we have here, and I'm going to sort of start backwards, is a report that shows us the add remove programs in our environment by name. Now, just to back up a little bit, what I've done into my console, and I've gone to one of my resources, and I just wanted to run through some of the things that, actually I am going to go full screen on this. Some of the things that we can see when we look at one of the assets. Now, this is just one asset that we're looking at here. The reason I do this is so that you can see all of the information that we can either run reports on, all the information that we can manage, or anything like that. Even though we're just looking at one set of information, we're able to see all of this information on reports for all of our systems. So right now what we're looking at is we're looking at a software summary, which shows us the software that's installed on this computer. It shows us the products listed in an add remove program. It shows us the details of any installed files we have. And you can see the other summaries that I have access to. Software updates, which are patches. I can look at asset summaries. I can look at hardware summaries, which give me sort of a breakdown on what hardware and things like that is available. I've got some asset information here that I can do. I can assign a machine an owner. I can assign it to a cost center or a location. I can even configure it if I want to, and go in and do that as well. Let's see. So we'll go back to the report. This would be an aggregate of all of the machines that we just looked at one. This is the computer count of all the machines that have this particular software installed on them. And really, if you look over here at the number of reports, if you can think of the report, it can either be created or it already exists. There's some dashboards that we have. One of the ones that we'll look at is our patch management dashboard. The dashboards are built so that we can see things at a glance. Now, again, I want you to think about the information that we can share between groups, between organizations. We've got a license status up here for the product, for the Altiris product. We've got Microsoft vulnerabilities. We've got software delivery summaries. So right here, we might have two different groups. We might have a group that's in charge of patches. We might have a group that's in charge of delivering the software. We've got software bulletins, which might be another group. It might be some managers or something like that. These are some reports we might want to be able to give to our management or give to our executive committee to see how successful we're being as far as installing software, things like that. One of the great things about the console here is that we can configure security settings so that if you're not the patch management administrator or you're not the Altiris administrator, you can't see this information. What's more, I can let you see it, but what's more is you can't act on it. So you can't come over here and stage and deploy a software bulletin if you're not licensed to do that. If your credentials credentials don't allow you to do that. Let's look at some of the inventory information. What we have is, in a lot of the screens, we have quick starts, and this tells us, gives us like the top 5 things that we need to do. We need to discover computers, install the agent, install the inventory plugin, create an inventory policy, and then run a report. That's the progression. Now, as you'll see that 2 and 3, and really 4, have already been done. The report is the only recurring piece here that we need to do. You'll see down here the full server inventory is set up to, well, actually it's turned off right now. But these are the inventory policies that I would set up to run. One of the things I can do is, if I want to have a software inventory, but I either want to look for a subset of machines, or I want to change the parameters of the software inventory, I can come in here and I can actually create a copy or a clone of this particular inventory policy. And once I do that, I can change. I can maybe turn off the original, and I can change the copy, or I can make the copy something completely different, and leave the original the way it is. This is another group very similar to the look and feel of a program like Outlook. I have my searches here that I've done. In this case, this is a demo lab machine, so I've got a lot of searches that I've named all demonstration computers. I can come down here and look at all kinds of views. I've got all computers. I can look at my Active Directory. I can look at things by patch. I can come down here and look at, instead of looking at it by computers, I can look at jobs and tasks. So these are some jobs that I can send out, some things that I can do. I can restart computers. I can restart server services. I can send email, basic inventory. These are all things that I can do on the fly, either to one computer or a group of computers. I can also automate these to run on a schedule. Let's look at our policies real quick. I've got managed software delivery policies. What this does is it allows me to set up a software delivery policy for managed software for software that I know should and is in my organization, so that I can set it up to run on a schedule. I can set it up to run and install on a particular group of machines, whatever my need might be. So I've got some software update policies set up that are scheduled to run. These are actual software bulletins that are set up to run, and this essentially tells me what the software update is going to run is, the computer that it's, or computers that it's applied to, and it's going to give me a couple of options, things like allow immediate restart if it's required, power on the computer if it's off, do I want to run it on a schedule, some different things like that. And then I can look at my software. We just have a few more minutes. We'll run through this and look at some of my different, I've got the newly discovered software is what we saw first. There's a lot, you'll remember a lot of this was listed in the Add Remove program. We've got choices for licensed software. We've got some stuff for Adobe and Microsoft listed in here, and some managed software. So we can move a lot of these around. We can take something that's newly discovered and manage it, or we can also blacklist it if we want to. Now, this is where I wanted to end up, because this is helping us gain efficiencies in dealing with, going back to my original license example. We can enter in here how much this software costs and how it's deployed in our organization. And we can see right here at a glance. Right now we see that we've got 3. Obviously this is a free product, but if it weren't, we've got 3 deployments here. If we had a price here of the software, then we could see at a glance what our over-deployed amount was, how much money having this software deployed, where maybe potentially wasn't supposed to be, was costing us. That if you could have somebody come in and take care of all your processes right now, because one of the things that ITS has seen, obviously, in a lot of organizations, processes that work, processes that don't work. And one of the things that we're able to do is go in, look at those things, and make recommendations, or even rewrite them and fix them. So I appreciate everybody's time on the call today.